I guess a lot of Americans want to move to Europe, Amelia, because on our last video, it's called 15 Easy Countries for Americans Who Want to Leave the U.S. We got a lot of comments on that video about Europe and why we didn't include more European countries. So we're going to record a new video just about Europe and share the 10 easiest countries for Americans who want to move to Europe.
Check the description for the methodology we use to select these top 10 countries if you are curious. And some of the popular countries did not make the cut. We'll talk about those countries and some others and why they didn't make the list later on in the video. So make sure you stick around.
All right, so here we go. Number 10 is Ireland, and it's actually not a very easy country to move to for Americans. However, everyone always asks, and we want to talk about it and explain why or how you can move there and why it's not that easy.
It's not as easy because the income requirements are higher, and they don't have a specific retirement visa. They have their long-term stay visa, and for that you have to have an annual income of at least 50,000 euros for a single person or 100,000 euros for a couple. You also have to have a lump sum of money to cover any sudden major expenses. The government example that they put on their website is the price of a typical residential property in Ireland, but they don't provide a dollar amount, so it kind of makes it a little tricky to plan. And you also do have to have private health insurance. Ireland does not have a digital nomad visa. However, they do have an entrepreneurial or a startup visa if you are that type and want to start a business. And for that one, you need a minimum investment of 50,000 euros as well.
All right, so why might you want to move to Ireland? Well, the first thing is it's an English-speaking country, so that's really nice for Americans. You can go and fit right in and meet locals and talk to them in your own language and understand each other for the most part. A lot of those sayings are going to really trip you up that they have. They speak with, what are those called? Idioms?
Idioms, yeah.
This is no day for a do.
She's a bit of a goer, our Kathy. Riding rings around them, so she was.
So that might be a bit of a challenge. They have a fascinating culture and history, tons of folklore. It's known as the Emerald Isle because it's so green and lush, and it does rain quite a bit though. And they do have a tax treaty with the U.S.
Speaking of the tax treaty with the U.S., you really need to make sure you check with a local tax professional before you make any plans, because you always, as an American, you always have to pay taxes. A lot of these countries do have tax treaties involved so that you can avoid double taxation, but we are not tax experts, so make sure you do your due diligence.
We're also not going to talk a lot about healthcare. Everybody always asks about healthcare in these countries. Rest assured, it's probably better and always cheaper than the United States. It's really not a major concern, especially in Europe. These countries have some of the best healthcare systems in the world, and they're far more affordable than the U.S. They have public and private systems, and it's not going to break the bank compared to what we're used to in the U.S. So we're just not even going to mention it in this video.
Back to our regular scheduled programming here. So there are, of course, drawbacks to Ireland, as there are any place in the world, and some of them is that Ireland has a higher cost of living. It is going to be more comparable to the United States. They're also going through a housing crisis. They are having a housing shortage. And JP mentioned the weather, the rain. Well, that can definitely be a downside. If you're not a fan of gloom and doom, you may not like the Ireland weather. Okay, what's next?
Number 9 is the Netherlands, my motherland. My mom discovered a whole bunch of genealogy information in an old box from one of my relatives, and we're from the Netherlands on her side of the family, from Nijkerk. And so it's just outside Amsterdam. So if you're from there, we might be related.
That is very cool. I'm very excited to explore more of that for you and to just adventure along with you, because I have no idea about my side of the family. So we've been getting more information, or more inquiries, I should say, about the Netherlands lately because of the DAFT agreement with the United States, which is the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty, and that was signed back in 1956. This is very compelling. It's not our traditional visa that we talk about, but they do have a special visa for entrepreneurs who want to open a business, and the minimum investment is only 4,500 euros. The visa is valid for 2 years, and you can renew it for 5 years, and it does lead to permanent residency. You definitely need to talk to a professional over there in the Netherlands that can help you through this process. I read that it is very easy to get, but I've also read and we've had comments that basically you just can open up your business and you don't have to do anything. That's not really true. If you want to renew your visa, you actually do have to support that business.
All right, so why the Netherlands? Well, it's a fully developed country. It's absolutely beautiful. They have tons of history and culture. It's a safe country. A lot of people speak English, although if you live there, they are going to expect you to speak some Dutch.
Of course, there are downsides. The cost of living is also higher in this country. In parts, it is going to be closer to the United States. And they have winter. So if you're not a fan of cold weather, you may not want to live there year round. I'm not a huge fan of winter. However, we went there in April and those long days are fabulous. And they do have a tax treaty with the U.S., but they do have higher tax rates there. So once again, you're definitely going to want to consult a tax professional. They're also changing the tax policies regarding the DAFT agreement coming up in 2025. So make sure you do all of your due diligence.
Number 8 is Italy. We spent time there this year, and actually it was the last year, a year ago right now, and we loved it. It was so nice.
I cannot wait to go back and explore more of the country. We were saying how we would like to spend our entire Schengen time, which is 90 days, just exploring Italy, but that has not worked out yet. However, I guess we could apply for one of their visas. So they have an elective residency visa, and for that you need to have at least an annual income of 32,000 euros in passive income. You also have to have private health insurance that's valid for a year and proof of accommodation. And they have a digital nomad visa. For that, you need an annual income of at least 24,789 euros. You need to provide information about your work contract or self-employment and document your work experience and provide proof of accommodation and health insurance as well.
All right, so why Italy, Amelia? Why not Italy?
Exactly.
It's Italy. You got the history, the culture, the fashion. Do you know this is the home of the famous designers Prada, Versace, Armani, Dolce & Gabbana, and Gucci are all from Milan.
I did not know that.
I know, it's crazy. And I think it's interesting how those businesses are named after people. In the U.S., it's always named after like a thing like Amazon or Google.
Or Gap.
Or Gape. Gape.
Gape. That's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference.
Yeah. They have mountains, beaches, islands. The food is incredible. We ate some really good food while we were there.
We did.
There's a wide variety of places to live in the north, central, south, Sicily. And also there's some incentives to move to some of the more rural areas for foreigners who want to come in. You get some tax incentives and other breaks just for moving there and living there. However, you might need a car because some of those are not on a rail line and not exactly walkable. So you might actually have to have a car to live there.
And they do have a tax treaty with the U.S. as well. The downsides are that you have to apply for this visa in your home country, and they are notorious for their bureaucracy, like a couple other countries we're going to mention on this list. It can be difficult to navigate that visa process. So bring your patience and give yourself plenty of time. Tourism is another issue that might be an adjustment.
Or over-tourism.
Over-tourism, yeah. I feel like tourism is basically around the clock now in some of these countries. So I don't think there's a high and a low season anymore. And just because you buy one of those cheap Euro houses that everybody dreams about does not mean you are going to get a visa. It does not work that way.
Yeah, everybody dreams about buying one of those and putting 100,000 into it and having their dream home. But some people who do that only live in Italy for 6 months a year. They do the Schengen visa for 3 months, then leave, go back to the U.S. or someplace else for 3 months, and then go back. So they're actually there 6 months a year.
Yes, so you really need to apply for one of those visas if you want to live there year round.
Number 7 is Spain, and we were also there a year ago and loved it. We were in Andalusia, which is in southern Spain. It's a region. We're going to go back and tour the rest of Spain probably maybe next year or the year after. And Spain is one of the places that's at the top of everyone's list.
It is. It's very popular, and they also have a couple visa options which are compelling. They have their non-lucrative visa, and that is also a passive income visa. You need a monthly income of at least 2,400 euros, and you have to provide proof that you do not work anywhere in the world. As far as their digital nomad visa goes, you have to have a monthly income of at least 2,646 euros. You have to have health insurance, and you have to provide proof of accommodation.
All right, so why Spain? Again, this is another why not Spain. country.
Exactly.
So it's a big country. There's lots of different regions in the north, the south, and the east. Yeah, the east coast over on the Mediterranean. Plus, you've got the Canary Islands, if you want to be more of the island living off the coast of Africa, where it's pretty summer-like all year round. They have a great culture, amazing history, amazing food and wine, and excellent public transportation. And it's really affordable, especially by European standards.
The downsides are that you have to apply for the visa in your home country. You will have to file taxes, but they do have a tax treaty with the United States as well. And they are also having an issue with tourism. They made the news a lot over the year for over-tourism protests, so something to be mindful of. Although I think that if you move outside of the major touristy areas, you're not going to experience a lot of that. And it actually can be really laid back in certain areas, which can be a pro or a con. I think at times it can be both if you're not used to that. So you might experience a little bit of culture shock.
Number 6 is Greece, and we spent New Year's and Christmas there last year, Amelia, and I can't believe what we're doing. I can't believe that we could say, yeah, we were there last year.
I know, it's so crazy. I did not dream we would be on this adventure. If you would have asked me 20 years ago, I would have said that just wouldn't happen. But here we are.
Yeah.
So Greece has their financially independent person's visa. And for that, they have increased this. You need now 3,500 euros per month or a savings in income, passive income. For the savings account option, you have to deposit the funds into a Greek bank. And you also need a medical certificate and health insurance. Greece has a digital nomad visa, and for that, you also need a monthly income of 3,500 euros and a medical certificate and health insurance and proof of accommodation.
All right, so why Greece? You've got the ancient Greek history. That was my favorite part by far of being in Greece, is seeing all of those ancient buildings. You have awesome food. We loved the Greek food we had while we were there. It's a really affordable cost of living. We were surprised by that. And we did a whole video about our cost of living in Greece. And actually, not a lot of people watched it. We're really surprised by that because it's super low. I mean, if you want to live in Europe, it's one of the most affordable countries.
Wasn't that our second most affordable?
Most affordable, yeah. You've got a ton of different islands to choose from in addition to the mainland where Athens is located. There are a lot of English speakers throughout the country, except the neighborhood where we chose to stay in Athens, where they either didn't speak English or didn't want to speak to us in English. And they have tax incentives for their visa holders, and they have a tax treaty with the U.S.
Some of the downsides are that you do need to apply in your home country. And we found the people to be a little bit abrupt and
abrasive.
Yes. JP really struggled with some culture shock.
It was a bit rough for me. I'm a nice person. I don't like yelling or being yelled at. And I felt like I got yelled at way too much just for doing things like getting on a tram or trying to go to a restaurant that was supposed to be open, or like trying to buy bananas. I got yelled at so much, I lost count. For doing things that normal people do every day, I was just apparently not doing them up to their expectations.
Well, we also saw Greek people just yelling at each other in Athens and in Corfu. So that's just part of the culture. So you might experience some culture shock if you are not accustomed to that type of personality.
Yeah, public venting.
Yes, public venting.
If you're from the Northeast in the U.S., it might just feel normal to you. That's kind of what it felt like when I've been to Boston or New York. It was very similar to that, but I didn't feel very comfortable there either.
They do also have a lot of bureaucracy, so that's something you're going to have to deal with. And Greek is a tough language. I know that there's people who speak English, but you are going to want to learn some Greek. It's very respectful and important. And there are a lot of tourists as well.
Number 5 is France, and I think maybe our favorite country.
France was gorgeous.
It was amazing. It blew our expectations out of the water. We didn't really have expectations. We thought we'd probably like it, but we weren't sure, and we liked it way more than we expected.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that. But first, let me take care of the visas. So they just have their long-term stay visa, and for that, you need to show that you have a monthly minimum income of at least 1,767 euros. Your income must be sufficient and stable, and you have to have health insurance and proof of accommodation. They do not have a digital nomad visa.
So why France? The history, of course, the history and the architecture. We just were in awe of the buildings. Mm-hmm. It felt like a planned country. Yeah. You know, like you see these, a lot of places, everything just feels like it was thrown together in a hodgepodge without much planning. And France, it just seems like everything was very well planned from the very beginning. And so everything, it just fits together and everything looks nice. together. We just loved it. The people were super nice to us. We went there expecting the French to not be a friendly people, and they were super friendly. As long as you say bonjour first to start the conversation. That's the culture there, not just for foreigners, but the French people.
Yes, they were extremely welcoming. We did a whole video about the lies we believed about France because there was a lot of old stereotypes that I think a lot of Americans believe, and that it was just, they were not true. Except for the baguettes, that was true.
The baguettes. We did see people walking down the street in the with baguettes in their arms or riding bikes with baguettes in the basket. It was just like being in a movie.
It was. It was fantastic.
They have excellent public transportation countrywide. They have trains, they have subways and metros and trams. I mean, they've got it all going. They have a wide variety of living opportunities, so you can live in a big city or a small town, the mountains, the ocean, inland farming. You can own your own winery if you want to. And they do have a tax treaty with the U.S.
But the downside is that you have to apply in your home country, and we found it to be a little bit more expensive compared to some of the other countries. Housing can also be a challenge because they do their housing leases differently. Italy has the same issue, so it can be difficult to get a one-year lease because a lot of these countries want longer-term leases, like 3 to 5 years, but you can make that work, and people do. And they are also having issues with tourism.
Over-tourism. Let's just call it what it is, over-tourism.
Yes.
But I mean, I understand
I know.
why. God, I can't wait to go back. Sorry, man. Be a tourist.
Yes.
Number 4 on the list is Bulgaria. We don't often talk about this, but they actually have some good visas.
They do. They have their retirement visa. For that, you need 933 lev in pension income a month. That's a monthly income requirement. And you should be prepared to show you have enough savings to cover at least 6 months of your living expenses. You will need to have health insurance. You'll also have to have rented or purchased property. They do not have a digital nomad visa.
Oh, that's a bummer. Come on, Bulgaria, get that digital nomad visa for us.
I bet you they will.
Yeah. So why Bulgaria? Well, it's now part of the Schengen zone, so I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and kind of limits your, if you want to stay there. If you get residency there, that does not count against your Schengen time, so it could be a good home base for travel throughout Europe. They have a very low cost of living, one of the lowest in Europe. It's a safe country now. It didn't used to be, and it still kind of has a bad reputation for that, but now it's considered a safe country. It's beautiful. They have the mountains, the beach on the Black Sea, and it's a good location relative to other countries for exploring. It is becoming more popular with expats and digital nomads, despite that not having a visa. I guess people are just going there on the tourist visa and working.
Right.
And they have the tax treaty with the U.S. too.
In Bulgaria, you also have to apply for your visa in your home country. I personally think having snow is a downside, so I listed winter as the downside, but you know, some people love that, so maybe that's a pro for you.
Especially if you ski. They have ski resorts there.
That's true. You are going to experience some language barrier issues once you get outside of the major cities.
That is the first 7. Before we share the top 3 easiest places for Americans to move to in Europe, we wanted to let you know that our Move Abroad Express e-course is still on sale.
If you're thinking about leaving the U.S., this course walks you through every step of the process to wrap up your old life at home and set up your new life abroad.
Plus, you're going to get lifetime access to all the course updates and our private, supportive expat community. There's no trolls in there. They're not allowed. And you can meet other current and future expats who are on the same path as you.
Scan this QR code here or click the link below to lock in your discount before it's too late.
All right, and now for number 3, Cyprus. And we're talking about the Greek side of the island, not the northern side.
Cyprus has their pink slip visa, and for this one you have to show at least 25,000 euros in annual income from any stable income source, and that can include pension and employment. You also have to deposit 24,000 euros in a Cyprus bank account and have a bank guarantee. You have to have either a 1-year rental agreement or have purchased property and have health insurance and pass medical exams.
Oh, that's a lot.
It is,
for a
but
pink slip.
It is, but it's still 25,000 euros a year. That's a low requirement.
It is. All right, so why Cyprus? You can apply inside the country. I think that's the first one we talked about, maybe the Netherlands. I think you can apply there, but you can actually go to Cyprus and apply while you're there, while you're on your tourist visa. They have island living, nice weather year-round. It does get chilly in the winter, but not too bad, and it does get really hot in the summer, but not too bad, because you're right there. You get those nice sea breezes. It is affordable, especially by island standards, and it's very safe, and they do have a tax treaty with the U.S.
It is a slower lifestyle, so that could be a potential downside if you are not used to that slower, laid-back pace. And it's not going to be as urban of a lifestyle either. So if you prefer a big city vibe, this is probably not going to be the right spot for you. They do have some natural disasters like earthquakes, so something to consider. And utilities can be more expensive, especially in the summertime when you're going to be wanting that AC.
Number 2 is Latvia. That's in the north, so you're going to need bigger electric bills for the heat in the winter.
Probably
gas
so,
or
yes.
whatever they use to heat there.
So Latvia has a retirement visa, and for that you need to show a monthly income of at least 1,035 euros, and you have to have at least 12,420 euros in savings. You also have to have proof of a rental agreement or have purchased properties. This is pretty standard. And you have to be 65 or older, so this has a little bit older of an age requirement. And they do have a digital nomad visa. And for that one, you have to have approximately 3,000 euros a month in income, have health insurance, which is valid for a year, and proof of employment or self-employment.
So why Latvia? Well, it's a safe country. It's in a beautiful part of Europe. It's got a great history and culture. And according to the government, it's pretty easy to get your visa. And they do have a tax treaty with the U.S.
Yeah, Latvia has a lot going for it, actually. But they do have really cold winters because it is way up north. So once again, I have listed that as a con. And you should be prepared to learn some Latvian because outside of the major cities, you're not going to find as many English speakers. The younger people speak English, but it could be tricky.
Yeah, I've heard Latvian is a difficult language to learn.
I bet it is.
Number 1 is Albania. Again, that was also the number 1 on our other list, but we didn't really talk about visa info for that.
Nope, so I'm going to share it with you now. So they have a whole series of unique permit visas. They do have a pension visa for retirees, and for that you need a pension income amount of 1,200,000 lek, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's really only around 12,000 US dollars a year. And they do have an investor visa, which just they don't provide the amount for that, but I don't think it's like the 500,000 golden visa.
Golden visa?
Visa. They also have a digital nomad visa. For that, you need a monthly income of 32,000 lek. You also do have to do a deposit for that, for the digital nomad visa, which is 300,000 lek. The cool thing about this, for U.S. citizens, this visa automatically is valid for 5 years. So it's a really good country to get a visa.
My favorite thing about Albania, though, is as an American, we can live there for an entire year just on the tourist visa, basically visa free for an entire year. Then we can leave for 3 months and go back and start the clock over again. And a lot of Americans who live in Albania are doing just that. They didn't even go through the hassle of the visa process. That is super cool, and it gives us a ton of flexibility. In fact, I think Albania will be our home base when we want to travel throughout Europe.
I do love it there.
Yeah, we really love Tirana. In fact, we talk so much about how much we love Albania in several other videos that we're not going to go into it here. We'll put a link to the playlist for all of our Albania videos below if you're really interested in that.
I know what you all are thinking, but wait, what about, okay, I'm going to talk about some other countries that have different types of visas. They just don't have the standard retirement or digital nomad visa, but they might have an option that will work for you, starting with countries where you could buy property or start a business. And the first one is Montenegro. Montenegro, you could do either buy a property or start a business, and they don't have a specified dollar amount, so you don't have to spend a fortune to move there. The downside with Montenegro, though, is that they have really strict physical presence requirements. So you're not going to be able to move freely around and do a lot. You can't be gone for like 6 months out of the year and hold on to your visa. Serbia also has a visa where you can buy residential property, and they do not provide a dollar amount.
Okay, Estonia. This is a neat one. We actually saw the Estonian former president talk in Kuala Lumpur during our visit there. I really enjoyed his, by far my favorite presentation of all, and how Estonia is now completely digital. Everything in the country is digitized except getting a divorce. If you want to get a divorce, you still have to show up physically and sign the papers.
They have their e-residency startup visa, and they also have a digital nomad visa. So they do have a couple options for you.
Slovenia is next, and this may be one of the most popular places, or at least according to the comments that we get of people who want to move there, who've been there and loved it. It's a beautiful country. Unfortunately, it's not that easy to move there. That's why we don't often talk about it.
They do have a long-term stay visa, but you have to have a reason to stay there, like family ties or some sort of sufficient tie to the country. You can, however, go and start a business there. Romania and Lithuania will also let you get a visa if you start a business. We're not going to list all the details because it would be way too much information, but you can find that information out.
Andorra is also another question that we get a lot, and they do have a visa, but you have to invest at least 600,000 euros. It can be in a property or some other type of investment. Plus, you have to have 40,000 euros per year in income to meet their income requirement.
There are a few other options for you, but they, again, might be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, these are even trickier than the last set that we just shared.
Austria, I know JP.
I'm so angry about Austria. Come on, Austria, make a special exception, will you, for a couple of YouTubers? This is my fatherland. This is where my dad's side of the family came from.
Well, they do have their residence permit for persons of independent means, and you just have to have a certain monthly income amount after expenses. You have to have basic proficiency in German, and the problem is they have a limited amount of visas that they issue per year. So you have to work with the government to see if you could qualify for that visa. And the same is true for Germany. You need to prove that you have enough income, and that is actually determined by the agent or the area based on the cost of living, and you also have to have a basic knowledge of German.
The Czech Republic, also another popular place to travel and to live, but their visa is a little bit complicated too.
Yes, they don't have a traditional digital nomad visa, even though I think they may call it that. It's really a skilled worker visa. You can't be YouTubers like us, JP, and get that visa.
Oh, that sucks.
They do have a long-term visa, but it isn't a true retirement visa. And it's another one where you really need to work more closely with the government or a visa agent to get you qualified.
All right, let's go to Switzerland. What kind of visas do they have? It's a little bit high elevation for me, but man, it's beautiful there.
Well, they also have a long stay residency visa, but this one's tricky too. You have to prove you have sufficient income, which varies by canton. And what I read is that you have to have at least the average salary, which is around $7,500 US dollars per month. So if your Social Security or your passive income isn't that high, you probably will not be able to move to Switzerland.
Well, on Social Security, the max I think is around $4,500, so that wouldn't work. But do you know if they allow you to combine income sources?
I do not know. They're one of those where you're going to have to work with the government, and you also have to have ties with the country, like family or own property or something.
Yep.
Then they do not have a digital nomad visa.
Then we have Norway, and they have a residency permit. What's that about?
You need to prove you have sufficient means to support yourself and have health insurance. They do have an independent contractor visa, but for that one, you have to have a contract with a Norwegian client. So it is not truly a true digital nomad visa. Truly and true.
And now we have a few countries that only have temporary visas, short-term temporary visas that do not lead to permanent residency. So if your goal is to move to Europe, you won't be able to stay in these countries for very long. And the first one is Poland. That one comes up a lot.
If you can do citizenship, then that's a different situation. But for people like us who do not have any Polish ancestry, we can only stay there on a temporary permit for a year. Then you have to leave, and then after that you could apply for a new permit, but it's not a seamless process. Croatia is like that as well. So they only have a 1-year temporary permit, and it does not lead to permanent residency.
And what about Hungary? That's another one that's kind of popular.
Hungary just has a digital nomad visa. They have a gold visa, but they also have a digital nomad visa. So that might work if you want to go as a digital nomad. And then I know we get questions about England and Scotland. They only have 6-month tourist visas. So you cannot move there. Now, granted, there's a lot of other ways you can move to these countries, especially if you could do a skilled worker visa. You can do that for England and Scotland as well. But if you're looking for a more traditional route, they do not have those options available.
All right, we covered a lot of European countries here, Amelia. We only left a couple out, I think, but which one is your favorite?
Well, I still have to say Albania because they make it so easy, and also we already have friends there. We've explored so much of the country, and I just love it. And then I guess my runner-up would be France, but I don't know. How can you decide? That's the thing. If you can go and get residency, then you could go and explore all over the place.
Yeah, I really, really like Tirana a lot. We will definitely be spending more time in Tirana, Albania, not Toronto, Canada, Tirana, Albania.
Okay.
We have that question. Every time we talk about Tirana, we get Canadians saying, are you talking about Toronto?
Oh, we need to enunciate.
Yeah, enunciate. No,
Okay.
that's how they say. They need to enunciate.
Oh.
They pronounce Toronto wrong.
I bet some Canadians are going to disagree with you right now.
All right, let us have it in the comments. Just be respectful. I guess I'm disappointed in my fatherland, Austria, that they don't have anything that would work for us. So we're limited to 3-month stays there. And I would really, really like to go explore my roots there. But I'm also really excited to go back to the Netherlands. We were in Amsterdam several years ago and we really liked it.
We did.
But now that I know that's where my family is from, half of my family came from there and I actually know where the town, I want to go see it and like walk the streets that they walked when they left in 1659. Can you believe that? That's almost 400 years ago that they left the Netherlands.
It's amazing to think about. I know, I have to admit, I am very intrigued by that DAFT agreement. So
Yeah.
I think we need to go and research that some more. However, that's probably going to be another year from now. Remember to check out the Move Abroad Express e-course by clicking this link here to lock in your discount now.
And if you're still interested in moving to Europe, then check out these videos next. Those are all of our videos from Europe.
That is all we have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked it, leave us a like, please. And we will see y'all next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.